to another episode of Awaken to Joy. I'm Shem,
Je suis Omondi.
and today we are welcoming our friend, fellow creator, another guest for a lovely conversation. It's Sasha. Hi, Sasha.
Hi, Sasha.
Hi guys, thank you for having me on again. I am super excited for this conversation. I
Yeah.
told you in your live that I was, and yeah, I'm excited. So we'll see where it goes.
All right. Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, something you said during our Sunday live in the comment, you said that truth can't be conceptualized. Could you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, there's from my experience, there's layers of there's consciousness, which I guess is an expression of what lies. Language is hard. There's consciousness, which is an expression of what lies beneath it all, which is the pure awareness, which I think I spoke to you about last time.
Mm.
That pure awareness is unknowable, unmovable. It just is. That's truth for me on the deepest layer. And that can't be conceptualized. That can't be, I wouldn't say known, but any language that tries to speak about it just collapses because it's beyond language. That's what I meant by truth can't be conceptualized. If we are speaking about anything within form, within expression, within existence, then that is to me potential truth, but it's also kind of a never ending conclusion. Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's actually interesting you're mentioning languages. And something that I noticed when it comes down to languages, the variations and the interpretation of the words. You can have similar words. I mean, between French and English, say for instance, there's a word that was um, we actually we actually had a bit of an issue with that word was eventually. So in the English language, when you say eventually, then it will happen, just not now. But in French, you the same word eventually, which is éventuellement in French, it may not happen, may or may not happen. So you can see how this is could be an issue and a conflict between two people because they've got their own version of the truth. I mean, what I know to be true as far as what the word means. And then Shem, she sees the word in different ways. Although she's right, I'm right. And and basically you may cause a conflict because you have an interpretation of the truth that is different. So what I found out about the trying to conceptualize truth, um, people in general, they've been brought up to be very narrow-minded, so that there can only be one. And do you think that it's essentially our judgments that limit us in regards to even the idea of truth, or should we redefine the meaning of truth in itself?
I think the truth that can't be conceptualized doesn't need language. Language is difficult because not only is it a word, then it's the idea around the meaning of that word. So two people can understand the same word, but then the meaning around that word can be perceived differently. So trying to understand truth, in my opinion, is a never-ending game. And what I'm realizing now through direct experience, which I keep speaking about lately, is that there doesn't really need to be an answer because there's something driving the questions. And when you see what's driving the questions, you realize that's what this is. It's something that's always wanting to look for something more, which is the brain. I don't want to get too technical, but you know, the brain is forever trying to do something, trying to find something out, trying to map, trying to label, trying to work out, trying to create a story. But in direct experience, there is no story. There is just this.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, you every time you say something, Sasha, immediately there's other things come to mind. Even if I plan to ask you a few things, now I've got new things to ask you, or at least chat about. There's one thing in particular. It was about the idea of the brain and how the brain interprets stuff, and obviously sounds more like a tool that is actually filtering the information. But one thing I noticed when I had an out of body experience is the absence of that. So it's kind of like whatever's going on comes with the body. We don't see it, but it definitely is. So when you come back, then everything flows back in. And to the point that when I have my out of body experience, I felt like I was on autopilot. I was doing things that I knew, but me here don't know. And yeah, this is very interesting.
I can relate to that, but also in my experiences, as I've allowed for myself to be able to, because okay, this is what I'm in the knowing of now. Once I've had enough of those moments where I've been in that autopilot mode, or what people would call stoicism, where you're just in a place of neutral non-judgment, you're just allowing for whatever the experience to unfold. You're not trying to attach yourself to every moment of it. You're just there. I've also realized that when I'm in either meditation or I just sit still with myself, that can come flooding through. It's just because, you know, once you've done something, once you could do it again type of thing.
Yeah.
So I've attempted and achieved to be able to put myself in that mode when I'm just here. For the sake of like being able to strip down communication, or if I'm looking for so-called inner guidance, I will be able to take myself to that place. And when you said about the words getting in the way and trying to conceptualize it, and it was more of, it's more of like not what the answer is, but what is searching for the answer. What is searching for the answer is the answer. Who's asking the question? I had a whole download and knowing about that just like 2 days ago. Like, it's not the question you're asking, it's who's asking the question. It's why does the person want to know the question, and who is driving the person to want the question in the first place. And it's this whole, it's what's behind everything, not the search for the thing. It's it's the love of the journey of the searching. It's a love of asking a question in the first place. The actual answer is not really neither here nor there. It's like the fun of the journey of it, but from like just a inquisitive, childlike being, like an existent. And that's my point. Back to what you were saying, the words get in the way. So it's just like, yeah, the words get in the way of trying to even conceptualize that.
Yeah.
Well, if you notice what Omondi said as well, you'll have an out-of-body experience, and in that moment, in that direct experience, there's no thought, there's no real, your brain doesn't come with you, you're just experiencing. But as soon as you're back, something tries to create a story about what happened, and that interpretation isn't direct experience. So we focus so much on the story and what we build around that, rather than just the experience itself. that shows a lot about identity as well, because when that happens, we believe straight away what we've just created in our mind about that experience rather than just experiencing. There's I've been saying a lot lately about an analogy. In fact, I'll give another one. When two people have an argument, it can be 5 minutes after the argument, both people have a completely different story about what happened in that argument, because they're not in that direct experience. They are thinking about what happened. Their mind is creating a story about what happened. So I want people in this space to be very careful about believing anything outside of direct experience, because an interpretation from someone who's even extremely experienced is just an interpretation that they're giving of that experience, and then you're interpreting their interpretation through your mind. So
Sasha,
Sasha,
you dropping bombs there.
nail on the head.
Yeah, this is exactly well.
This
you
is
both
literally what we hold
actually
the whole podcast
is
for.
about. But you both actually pointed out something I find out very important. Probably surpasses even the idea of you having an OBE. It's the understanding not of who we are or what we are. And when I had that experience and I came back, I realized we're not who. Because the minute you say who, you then trying to create an identity. And usually the identity I find out it's so tethered to your body. So how you look and stuff like that. And I realize how limited that is, even to understand what's going on. And I actually found out that that was the last thing that, from my experience, like you say, we all have our own experience, and that's only, I guess, that's your relative truth. It's you know what you've experienced, and you can only speak for yourself. But one thing I've noticed, it's when I was on the other side, it's just you're no longer who you are here. It's like more of a what of a, and even to a point that you realize even some of the beliefs you hold can project on the other side, because some did project on the other side, where I starting gain the notion that I was tethered to my body. I even felt the discomfort of my body because I was laying on my back, and that's not the most comfortable position for me after a while. So I start feeling how linked physically I was to the body, but not necessarily emotionally. So and that dissociation, I've noticed, once you can bring that concept back here, you begin to understand many things, and you cover these things about even the attempt of defining even this concept of infinite is the limitation in itself, because you mentioned it before. So how would you say, because the whole point of this is to get people to understand, what would be the simplest way to understand this concept that you're infinite, however you're having this human experience, without getting modeled up with the identity?
This answer is going to be boring for people.
Go on in.
The answer is being human. You can literally find out exactly who you are by loosening your grip on your identity gradually, stably. Is that a word? With stability. Because when you start to notice what's actually running your identity, and you start to watch it, and it slows and it slows and it slows, you're left with what the mind will see as boredom. But in that boredom is a stillness, and that stillness is what you are. And in regards to out-of-body experiences, we talk about, so the things that I'm going to say might be controversial for some people, but this is just my experience, and my understanding can change. So, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. But for out-of-body experiences, we talk about a soul. We talk about higher self. I see them as certain types of expressions of consciousness, But really, it's just still form. Whatever has form is form, but it's still not you. The form isn't you. You are what inhabits that form. I try to tell people, I don't want to come across like I'm speaking against anyone, but to me, this is empowering. So I'm going to say it. People focus so much on leaving. They focus so much on getting somewhere, going home. When you understand what you are, home never leaves, because home is you. The underlying awareness beyond form is your home. And when you have this understanding, every type of texture of experience, whether it's a highly physical, limitless, freeing, creative expression, which people can call home, it's still a texture within consciousness, but underneath that is the real you. So I've started to, I've just took this in a whole different lane. Apologies, but I feel like I needed to say this. I've started to feel like consciousness in every aspect, whether it's love, light, or dark, is my home. There was an experience that I had where I went inside my body through sleep paralysis, and I entered this room and I was speaking to these beings. And in that experience, there was no thought. There was no me. I was just a form, a body speaking. And I said to the beings that I'll only speak to them if they align with love and light. And then they didn't want to speak to me. They told me that they was autonomous. I didn't know what that meant at the time. But to me, in that moment, that didn't matter, because I thought, if you don't tell me you align with love and light or truth, then I'm not going to have this conversation. That was a while ago. And I've kind of done a full circle. And what I'm realizing now is true sovereignty isn't love and light. True sovereignty is autonomy. It's the spectrum of existence and allowing all. Because if you just put yourself into one sliver, which I did, I only want love and light, just give me love and light, you're not your true self, which is all of that. That being taught me a lesson then. I didn't even know it was a lesson until recently.
Yeah.
That is number one. I think that's really courageous of you to come and actually just say, yep, I learned something new and this is where I'm at right now. And a lot of people would call that a U-turn, and I wouldn't. I would just call that an expansion, a discovery. Knowing thyself is knowing something that you probably didn't realize was there the day before. So admitting that it's there now, I've actually changed, is huge on a human level. Mm-hmm. And on the society level, that will tell you that you can't change your mind, and if ever you change your mind, then you look like you are backtracking, but you're not. You're moving forward. And where I would say that concept aligns with me is because I do energy readings. I've always been aware that you cannot be one thing, because it doesn't allow you to go and retrieve all that you are. Mm-hmm. And if you are somebody who has experienced some dark places in your experience here, or your experiences in the past, as people would understand it here, in order for you to go back or to sit with that part of yourself, to love that part of yourself, to connect with that part of yourself, you would have to accept that it's sometimes not a love and light. Sometimes it's what we would call evil. Sometimes those parts of you are what we would call dark. But it doesn't mean that you can't resonate with it, that you can't learn something from it, that you can't accept it, And it's not anything to do with what we would conceptualize as punishment and judgment here. It's just a connection to all that you are. You can't say, I'm consciousness, I'm all that I am, I'm all that is everything, everything is everything, I'm in this, everything is energy, and say, oh, but not that bad bit, not that dark bit, not that bit that looks a bit weird in the face, because I've had one of those ones as well, where it's like, oh no, that's got nothing to do with me. I don't even know what you are. And then that being was just more loving that I could be in that moment. Let's put it that way. But I was like, and then I learned. And there's so many other instances like that where it's like, yeah. So I totally understand what you're explaining.
I was going to say, yeah, go ahead, Sasha. Go.
I was just going to say, when I went on your live a couple of weeks ago, and I said embrace the shadow work, and you said the inner work, same thing. That's exactly what I meant. We have to embrace all of us, not just love everything.
You know, you actually mentioned something that resonated with me in terms of there was no thoughts. Couple of weeks back, I say I no longer resonate with the idea of thoughts. I say ultimately they were creations, because we can't stop creating anyway. But we're trying to qualify it as thought, and then thought form, and then this becomes matter, or whatever we see before our eyes. And I was like, if we just stick to the simplicity of it all, anyway, they're just creations. Anyway, we're here to create, regardless. And then you said you were in that place was like there was not even thought, but you're still something happened without the thought. And I had an experience that reminded me, well, your experience reminded me of that experience, where I was on the other side with Shem, and there was a little bit more physical. It wasn't more physical than here, but it had the idea of physicality, our bodies, or who we are. And then I was going into a trance there, sort of meditation, and appearing in another realm, but I was formless. There was no physicality there. It was a pure consciousness. And I was channeling like language there, language I never heard. I couldn't even reproduce it here. It was just, that's what happened. Sort of like I was in direct connection with some being, and then channeling that like language. And the idea of what's taking place there was the idea of dark and light, fighting the dark and light, and using light language as a means to transmute. I mean, what was there back into light. And then I was in and out and coming back from that place to the place I was with Shem, and she was like sort of like there, so I don't drift. It felt like she was here to keep me coming back and going and coming back, and I was in and out. And then at the end, I woke up. What I thought I was going to wake up in that reality, I wasn't. I was still there with Shem, and I realized, oh snap, I'm not there yet. So I had to wake myself up again. So the idea behind
To be here.
to be here, the idea behind all multi dimensions I'm beginning to realize that the only reason we are searching for sort of physicality, and we say, oh, when you're on the other side, it's a lot more physical, which is not necessarily true, but it's just a projections of our limitation here, because we're only experiencing physicality through our senses that our body allows us to have. And we kind of tend to it seems that we're projecting this on the other side, so we're not really having a true experience, although people talk about truth, but it's not the full spectrum. So how was it for you when you were there with this being? Like, did you have the same realization that perhaps we're not as physical as we try to define in terms of physicality?
I see, because I don't label anything. I think when people are trying to label realm 1, 2, 3, etc., A, B, C, dimensions, planes, I don't do that. I see textures. So when I've been out, I've noticed familiar textures. People might call them this particular realm, but I literally feel the texture of the experience that I have, and I've noticed that there's different textures, and the different textures are different based on the stability of the awareness within the texture. And what I've found, so there was an experience I had when I woke up out of it. The experience I had, I've felt that texture before. It was a completely new experience, but I've been in that same texture. And when I came out of it, I felt the texture here, which I think is gravity, but I felt it. And I was like, oh, this is just another texture within consciousness. But what I think's going on with the physicality is everything always changes. These people that say there's like really physical realms, they are, but they're fluid. They're fluid. They can morph. They can change. Here, this is very. If you notice though, scientifically as well, there is always a micro change happening that we don't see. This is fluid, completely fluid. Nothing's physical really here. It's always changing and morphing, but it's very slow. It's very dense, and you only notice the change when you look back. But in these different textures, it seems like there's more fluidity, but there's more stability of awareness, which makes it feel more real. So when I say everywhere feels like home to me, it's because to me these are all different textures. And people say, again, this is going to be controversial. I hope this is okay. I'm bringing this to your channel.
Oh, go ahead, shoot. It's great.
Go for it.
People are like, this is fake. This is an illusion. I want to get out of this place. When you dream, that's so real to you. And then you wake up, and then this is so real to you. And then you can have an outer body, and that's so real to you. Why is there one particular place located over there that's home, when all of these are just different states of texture and awareness? I don't get it. This is what I'm getting. This is what I'm getting.
Well, it's very interesting because I can second that in terms of texture. I remember being in the dream space, being in Shem's dream space, and there's some things that I didn't like was taking place there, and I was saying like, now that they're lying, it's not true, what's going on? And then I felt like as if someone was unplugged something, and the dark, I just was thrown in the dark, and that darkness was so physical, was an extreme physicality. Then I pop back in my dream space. I mean, in my dimensional space, and I realized, wow, some would say, well, that's not an OBE because you were dreaming. But then, like you say, textures, and it felt like textures. Like I felt the texture of the darkness, and it was very heavy. But then again, I thought this is how I conceptualize it. So a lot of these things, I found that there's a lack of ownership of the way we behave in terms of our belief system, what we decide we keep, what we don't keep, and how we see reality, how we conceptualize reality, and how we project it. Because each and every experience is a projection, essentially, what seems that way, and it has a direct correlation with your beliefs, which then brings up the idea of truth. That when someone say, well, if you go on the other side, it's very this, it's very that, and it's what it is, and it is true, but at the same time, for another person, it might not be true because, like you said, if you're somewhere, there's not even a thought.
Yeah. I want to add, because what I'm probably saying might be, I don't know if it is, but it could be triggering to some people. So I want to clarify something. I'm not saying that there isn't an infinitely potential field of expression. See, this is the language I use now. It's stupid, but let's say it's not stupid to me.
No, it's not stupid.
This place, I really want to focus at the minute on this place that people are calling like home, where we're from, where our soul is from, and where it lives forever. I'm not denying that when I'm speaking about this. I'm not denying that you can have a form that is potentially infinite, that exists within a potentially infinite field of expression. I'm not denying it. But what I'm kind of saying is, you are still not that form, and every texture of expression can be experienced. Why are we here? We're here to experience this texture. We can be experiencing another, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that place is our home. But I don't want to deny it. That's what I'm saying, that there could be, I think this is what people are calling a soul, this like really freeing, unlimited form that we can inhabit, but the form isn't us. Yeah.
I resonate with that.
Yeah, I
And
do as well.
and there's two things you've said. One, I'm gonna circle back to the inner work, but first I do want to touch on this home thing because we're on it. My ideas around home have been tested in this realm and in others, in very much in ways that are human here, and very much in ways that are whatever they were when I was experiencing them elsewhere. And what I would say is, I've experienced places that others around me had told me, you're back. Oh, you're home. Or like I was arriving back to where I was supposed to identify as home.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason or another, I had parts of the experience where I was like, not quite happy with it, which made me have a reflection of how I feel sometimes here. I can still call this place my home. And even though I'm not 100% happy with every iota of how it's going or how things are here, I can still identify it as my home, because me, without being Shem, just the me, I know for a fact is still excited to have this experience and still feels that there are more experiences to pull from here right now. So my idea around that has been, well, while you're here, you might as well make it dope. And every time I go anywhere now, it's with that knowing, well, if I'm here, it's because I would like to experience here. Let me say I call it my home. I'll make the best of a situation. So every situation I get into now, it's to make the best of it as if it is my home, because it's clear that whatever I am is constantly wanting to switch that out and switch out what it allows itself to experience in one given time. And whereas I can attest to the place that you can go to and people know your name and you can see loved ones and you're free of the stuff that you can experience here, and you can choose to experience that for an eternity, there are infinite other places as well where you can choose to do the same thing. So the home thing, I get it. As soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, that's where my home is, where the heart is, but not heart as in physical heart. Home is wherever I'm experiencing at the moment until I say it's not, and then I'll change out of that. Like, yeah. Not tethered to one experience to call home per se, because then that limits what I am.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I am that I am. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm actually,
ya?
you got me thinking about a lot of things as you said that. And actually, what Sasha was saying in the idea of a home, that was one of the reason. At first, I didn't want to have an out of body experience. And then it's for multiple reasons, because I had ARWS growing up, if you know what the Alice in Wonderland syndrome is, it's basically you are observing distortions of reality. So you become very big in a room or very, very small in a room. Time can slow down or accelerate. Now, looking back now, I was very scared when I was a kid. Plus, I was hearing voices as well. So I was now, from my own interpretation, what I understood, I had the ability to hear voices from different layers of realities. So we are multi-dimensional beings, and I was hearing all these voices at the same time. So it was very frightening as a kid. However, now I'm able to look back and see what that was. And it was me experiencing this reality in different ways. Although it's classified as being a syndrome, quite a lot of people go through that. But I was actually seeing even like the walls of my room wobbling, become bigger and smaller, and all of that stuff, all of that good stuff. Um, but then they say, well, it's you brain trying to interpret what it sees. So there's obviously a neurological issues, and that's what it is. Decided trying to explain it, but then that wasn't very true because we were talking about the input. So as you close your eyes, the same feeling was happening.
The
So I was
texture again,
yeah,
this texture
texture, and
concept.
no longer I'm no longer receiving anything through my eyes. So what is this still taking place? And I remember, and so I was feeling the room getting bigger and all of that. So my point is, by the time I heard about OBEs, although out of body experience I heard couple of years back about it, I was like, nah, I'm not interested now. Then another thing was like, I'm not interested because if it's better on the other side, I am not coming back. That's the train of thought I had. But I somewhat had to question myself. I said, why do you feel like that? And the endless question, why? So you only stop when you are satisfied, because if not, you can go on forever. And that's pretty much can crack your own reality if you want to keep going with that. So I asked myself, why? Why do I feel like this? And the answer was like very simple, is because you're trying to escape. Because
Yeah.
had home like you think it should be was here right now, you wouldn't want to go anywhere. And I was like, you know what, touche, it's true. I wouldn't try to escape. So my reason now for not having an OBE is no longer there. So then I had that experience shortly after that, where I felt my whole body living, and I left my body and stuff like that. But then I realized that basically in some way I lacked gratitude. And the whole point of was to basically find a way in wherever you think home is, then bring it here. You have the power to do that. That was my own realization. So when you guys talking about home and the idea of home, and when you, Shem and Sasha, you saying like, well, it's pretty much everywhere you are. It is really true when you break it down to what it truly is and your reason for wanting to leave. Yeah, so I 100% agree. So when you were talking about this, when Sasha was talking about this, I was like thinking about it. I was like, oh my, yeah, I remember that feeling. So yeah, for
And
sure.
I've had an experience in outer body where it felt like home, right? But I've had an experience right here where it felt undeniable that this is home. And that's why I know, for me, that just me, the essence of me, the true nature of me is home. Wherever I am, home is. And I don't want to dismiss anyone, but I'm saying that I've had this experience and I'm telling my truth through my experience, and people don't have to believe that. But what this does is it really empowers you, because it shows you that the act of you trying to escape or get to somewhere else is literally pulling you away from being here, and that's taking you away from home. If you're always trying to escape, or if you're always trying to find something more, find something better, how are you ever going to enjoy this moment anyway? You never will. And then, so this is where the noticing comes in. When you notice what's trying to pull you away, which is your mind and your thoughts and your attachment to your thoughts and your identity, when you notice that that's happening and you just stop and you relax, that's when home will appear.
Yeah. What's really
It's
well,
beautiful.
what sounds controversial is the fact that you're supposed to have an out of body experience. Remember who you truly are. And part of that, it's not to look outside of yourself, but escapism is literally looking outside of yourself. So if you begin to say to yourself, well, I don't want to be in this shitty place, I want to go home, you're literally looking outside of yourself, you're not understanding that home is within you. So there's a contradiction. And I know that when you say that, it contradicts a lot of things people have ever said, but to me, that's how I perceive truth.
And that's kind of what, if you allow these experiences to sit with you for a while, you will finally get to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And that's when I've got the song called Home, right?
That's funny.
And it sounds like I'm singing to somebody.
Yeah.
That was you singing that to you.
Yeah.
That's a self-declaration. That's not, because we say, oh my God, sing it to your loved one, and you can. But that's your song back to your I am.
What was beautiful is the ability of shifting your perception. And so that's essentially what you're talking about. You're just literally shifting your perception, how you perceive things. And Sasha, you mentioned stillness. I think stillness is misunderstood. It can come across as boredom
or stagnation.
Stagnation. Could you give your definition of stillness?
Stillness is peace. Stillness is love. Stillness is home. Stillness is what's left when the brain stops trying to be anywhere else. Yeah.
Just as you said it, I thought about when I still myself and I just watch my kids play, and they're just in life, just full-blown loudness, being, and I'm like, this is home in those moments. And that's what I was talking about, circumventing that to be able to draw answers from myself, being able to just put myself back in that stillness where I can get to whatever I feel like I need to, of, like you said, peace, where the clarity can show itself in any given moment, where home can show itself in any given moment. I love that. You say you're not good with words, and secretly you're a mastermind.
True.
No, I do mess up.
Don't we all?
You know what? While we're on this topic, I do want to speak about embodiment, because my whole arc on my YouTube has just finished, and that's all been about embodiment.
Go on.
And that's basically about being human. I can talk like this and I can say these things, and it's very easy for someone to listen to me and be like, oh, he sounds like he's mastered his perfect blah blah. I'm not. What embodiment is knowing that you don't have to be perfect, knowing that questions will always be there but not needing answers, knowing that the mind will take you away but you don't have to always be present, knowing that you don't have to control anything, knowing that anger will arise and you don't have to react to it. That's what embodiment is. I'm not perfect. Existence just is. And there's when like in Buddhism, for example, they speak a lot about suffering. They say, firstly, they say that everyone is a Buddha. But they speak about suffering a lot. And that suffering is this. It's like the reaction to, oh, I had a bad thought there, I shouldn't have had that. And the guilt trip you feel and the judgment you place upon yourself. We're very quick. We're the worst judges of ourselves. We see this, even people who go to this heavenly realm in NDs or OBEs and have a life review, they come back and they're, oh, I was so bad. That's just your mind again, just judging you and beating you down. And you don't have to attach to those thoughts that come up.
You know
Well,
what?
it's really great you mentioned lab reviews because we wanted to talk to you
We were
about
on the
that.
when we were on the live. We were like,
But before
yeah.
before that, I wanted to touch on something. Um, okay, regarding stillness, um, downloads. I realize, for me, my own experience, when I get into a state of stillness, and it's not necessarily for meditation, sometimes is getting occupied to do something and get in a almost like trance-like state where I may appear that I'm not here, although I'm doing something. I can then begin to receive information and downloads, and the more I recognize it, the more it comes. Um, but somewhat we gain in in times where people trying to grade what's the most valuable and the least valuable, and the most truthful and the least truthful, and often I feel overlook this aspect of themselves, because I think that ultimately, without having necessarily to leave your body, our body, the way it's designed to be in 100% connection with our soul and gain the information from it. What is your view on receiving downloads or informations, or hearing words or phrases or anything like that?
In body,
In
in
body, I mean, yeah.
embodiment. Yeah.
This is why we're lying. I've literally been thinking about this lately, and my understanding has completely changed on it. Because, and we can also talk about this later if you want, but my understanding on multidimensionality has changed as well, and it's linked. So intuition is what is underlying. Intuition is, maybe, I don't want to say this as a conclusion, but maybe what if you want to call your soul. It's always there, and I don't see downloads as something being downloaded from somewhere else anymore. I see downloads as the knowing, when you allow yourself to be still and listen to the answer you already know. Downloads aren't coming from anywhere else. They're not coming from a higher self. They're not coming from a higher realm. They are in you, because you are them. Yeah, that's how I see downloads.
Well, it's interesting what you're saying, because when you begin to understand quantum mechanics, the quantum field and how it works, you're never really traveling anywhere. Nothing is from anywhere. You shift reality around you, and it's been mentioned before. I'm going to talk about not the subject, but I'm going to talk about beings and the craft they've been using, essentially consciousness based. Now, I'm going to say allegedly. It's what's been reported. And the way these craft are working, they basically shift the reality around them to the place they need to be. So they never travel anywhere. They just appear to that new reality. So it sounds like we got it all wrong originally, because the concept of, you know, time, linear timeline, and, you know, fact that we have to do efforts. So always, if you want something, you have to wait, or there's the idea of traveling somewhere. So I think it's best off of that alone. But the way you've explained it make a lot of sense when it comes to our reality and where we are now. So I'm
Yeah,
happy you mentioned it that way, and it's from within as well. Yeah.
I've had experiences that have changed when I've been. So now I just want to make clear, I'm not trying to have out of body experiences at all. I'm in complete surrender to life. So if they come, they come. If they don't, they don't. But when I've been having out of body experiences through this surrender, in the past, people have said that you leave the body, you go through a portal, you go through a wormhole or anything, a mirror, and you're in another place. When I used to force out of body experiences, I'd bring my identity. I would go through what seemed like physical things, and I'm not denying that they aren't physical, but that's another whole rabbit hole. What is physicality? But what's happening, or what's been happening lately, is now I'll see a wormhole or a portal, and I won't go through it. I become it, and when I become it, the reality shifts. So it's like I see it, and I have this intention to go through it, and I just become it. And the wormhole, I say wormhole because that's what comes up for me. It collapses around me. I feel its texture, and then it goes completely black, and then a new field of expression just appears. I never really move unless I inhabit a form within the experience, and then I move within it. But when I'm just in surrender, these realities, these experiences, they just form and go. I become objects, I become whatever. And that's what's been happening for me. I don't want to speak about the UFOs because I have no idea. I don't follow it. I don't know anything about them. But what you've said resonated because of what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, this is a common thread that I'm realizing, and allow us to understand this reality and where we are. Essentially, I was mentioning for this, but that leads me to ask you another question regarding that. It's the idea, and I'm not asking you to agree or disagree or to say I believe this or not. It's about round and flat Earth, and many people have experience around Earth going on the other side, or flat Earth. My conclusion for me was that, okay, well, then it's definitely attached to your belief system you hold here, which led me to think that basically we must project every time we go on the other side. We have to be aware that the possibility of you projecting from this place, from where you are now, if I can say that, is real. It's a real thing, and your experience will be different from one person to another. Have you noticed that happening even for you, depending on of the state you were in, and then you had an out-of-body experience, let's say, or even a dream, and then this what took place?
I'd say that experience is based on just thinking of how to say this. We see things as we are, not as they are. That's probably the best way I can answer that question. So how I see, when you look up and you see the stars and you see the sun, I don't think that's, again, another controversial thing. I don't think that's incorrect, personally. I don't think it's incorrect either when people say they see them as portals. What I think's happening is, while we're in this dense experience and we're looking out, they're appearing as physical objects. But as soon as you loosen your experience and enter a different type of experience, the appearance changes. And I think if you were to enter another experience that was even looser from that one, the appearance would change again. So that's why I say we see things as we are, what state we're in, how we perceive, not as they actually are. We are, everything's just, I'll leave it there.
We create our beings. So I guess we're more powerful than what we think we are, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know what? No, you're gonna have to take your flowers about this word stuff, because everything you're saying is literally like, that's what I've been trying to say on the lives. And just battering it for like an hour and a half, trying to just get out.
I don't want to, you know, I'm in this place at the moment where I see, when I speak to people, not you guys, but I speak to people and I see where they're at. Not that I'm higher. We're all at different stages of the exact same existence, but I see where they're at, and I really struggle with meeting them there. I really struggle with articulating my words where they're at.
Yeah, I get it.
It's hard for me. So this is why I always try to watch how I speak. I try to do it in the most accurate way I can. And I also try to not dismiss anyone's experiences, because I'm not actually dismissing anyone's experiences. I'm trying to explain how everyone can be right at the same time.
Yeah.
But then there's that truth underlying that can't be conceptualized.
Yeah, because that's why we try to speak to as many people as possible, and we encourage the community to tell what they're going through, because it may resonate for somebody else who is right where they're at, or be able to tap into what experiences they have at that moment, versus somebody else who may never even want to experience that. And that's why sharing these things are so important, so no one feels like, well, where am I then? And what level am I at? And and then you start leveling yourself, and then it becomes this, well, you're the expert at that. And then it's like, no. This is just where I'm at in my experience right now, and it could change tomorrow, or I don't know. But I'm okay to say, I don't know where it's going to go from here, and that's great.
I think because of duality and what we've experienced here, general limitation, people find it hard to get with the idea that there is. Well, I would say, I would say this like this. I would say that there is multiple relative truth, and like you said, there's an underlying core truth. And when you tell people that, because we are indulging often in the idea of judgment, righteousness, and even when we swear we're detaching ourselves from this concept, there's still few things sometimes we're not saying, and we speak, a bit like maybe a judgmental person, or someone is still in duality, because it's difficult to do without. But people find it challenging um, when it comes to saying, well, yeah, the possibility of multiple truth is there. So, is there such thing, when you talk about lie, maybe we say someone is a liar because they've experienced that and it doesn't match whatever setting of our own reality we think it should be matching, although they're experiencing their own relative truth. Um, my only observation was, well, yeah, perhaps that us starting acknowledging the fact that there can be multiple truth, as we are multidimensional beings, and we can't stop creating, we're constantly creating. Um, then maybe that's what it is what would we limit ourselves in the sense that saying, no, there can only be one truth. I don't know if you notice the same thing, but I've noticed that it's a sore subject.
Yeah, it's a very sore subject, and I think the word truth is making it sore. I think if we change the word truth to perspective, then it changes everything.
Yeah, you did mention that.
That's what we say. Everybody's sharing their own perspectives. It's his perspective. And someone says, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So-and-so said it looked like this. And I said, the point is not the what, it's the how. You're sharing how. You're sharing how I did something. Like, we could both make a table, but if I make mine by hand and someone else does it by machine, they're both interesting ways to make a table, and we've both got tables. Like, not who cares, but why do you care? What in you is holding on to caring about that piece there, when you can be so more expansive by just allowing both things to live there? Because they don't contradict one another if you just allow them to just be themselves. The only contradiction comes in is when you insist to label one as truth. And then it sounds to me, which is something I learned when I saw something, well, it's another story, but I'm not going to talk about that one, but it's literally the basis of most wars. The over-conceptualizing of truth. The attempt to conceptualize truth is like the seed, the potential seed of most conflicts. if you let it.
Yeah.
If
And
you let it.
control out of fear.
Yeah, it's that. Literally. And then that brings me back to two things you said. You're speaking about the downloads. Now, as I'm an energy reader, I have to, and then you spoke about being able to bridge with people through language. When I talk to people about connecting with their higher self and everything, I'll do a reading, and where I can say, yep, connect with your higher self, use your discernment, only take what fits. Don't try and force anything to fit. Sometimes it could be understood as literally you having to go up in your mind and connect with someone who is outside of yourself, or go deep within and connect with someone who is another person who is your higher self and you're not that. And then I'll have a comment from other people who, because I also read for other people who can read energies, that they've already understood you are the field. So you're not connecting to something outside of yourself, you are expanding or accepting what you are. So when you draw from this place, you're not drawing from a person that you're asking a question to. You've made this person up and they've answered for you, and it makes it easier to be able to connect with them in that way for some people. And I've done it myself, and sometimes I play with it, but I'm understanding I'm playing and I enjoy that game. But ultimately, you are the field. That's why all the answers are already there when you sit in stillness.
Yeah.
But the way you was talking about surrendering also, it's like another form of stillness, but doing it when you decide, okay, I'm going out of body, or I'm not, or I'm dreaming, or I'm not. Whatever this is going to be, it's going to be. It's like finding that stillness in those moments as well. Because often you realize, oh, I am the door I want to go through. I am the wormhole I want to go through. I am all these things. And I just loved how you were able to talk about that, because very often if you allow these things to happen and don't search for them to happen, these different experiences will kind of like form in front of you and then they'll fall away.
Yeah.
So now, when it comes to your concept of inner work, shadow work, how do you go about it?
I notice patterns. I notice pulls. I notice urges to react. I notice habits that I've created throughout my life. So I always give this example. You might 5 years ago react through anger and speak or shout to someone for 5 minutes straight and not think about it afterwards and just stay in that anger. But the minute you decide to make a change and start noticing you doing that, that 5 minutes of shouting turns into 3 minutes, then 1 minute. And then eventually you just start to notice the urge to get angry, and that anger builds up and you feel it without reacting, and then it fizzles away. This is my way of dealing with inner work. When, let's think of a silly example. If you eat chocolate every single day, but you're beating yourself up about it, notice that urge to go and buy that chocolate. Notice it, because that noticing itself dismantles that habit over time. But it's just about being persistent, being consistent, and keep noticing. And then eventually these habits, these thoughts that you attach to will start to loosen. And then you notice that everything can be allowed. The thought to want the chocolate, the thought to want to react through anger, that can all be allowed. But you're just now sitting back from all of that happening without reacting. That's when you reach that stillness again.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful way to doing the
Yeah,
work.
that's
It's like a ongoing. It's an ongoing dialogue with yourself, I
yeah, it's a
guess.
very gentle process.
It sounds
Um
loving.
I regarding shadow work, um I just no longer um I no longer resonate with it. Um Not because um I think that us going through things it's good or bad or anything like that. I think we can't help it. We're going to go through things because how this reality is designed. But I realized very quickly that the attempt in fixing yourself uh, puts you in a loop in itself and disable you from one of the main ability you have is transmute any darkness or aspect of yourself that you see as being dark back into light. Um, and then a bit like what you were saying, if that thought come up, you want to buy chocolate, um, you can observe how you react. To me, it sounds more of the experience as opposed to trying to self-medicate yourself. Because we still have to understand we form this paradigm of, well, there's an issue, we have to medicate it, we have to intervene. We can over intervene sometimes
Mm,
because we're in a system that is like that. So
mm,
I realized that by letting go that aspect of myself that believes that need fixing and going through its shadow work has opened up a lot of new things for me. It doesn't mean without I'm doing without these challenges. I do have these challenges, but for the sake of acknowledging what I am, and as to your point when you were saying like we pin so much to our identity, we often refer to ourselves as who we are, and I realized that that's not actually true.
mm,
Um, because if you had many lifetime, there's a point you were not Sasha, I wasn't Omondi, and you were not Shem.
Mm.
So when you kind of like starting having sort of like past lives and or experiences that are of you from another dimension, because nothing's really the past really, but I'm just saying it puts things back into perspective when it comes on to your idea and the idea of fixing anything. And so I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about um holding trauma and the idea of having traumatic things that happen to you? And is it just, are we holding to that trauma in the hope of fixing it as opposed to just allowing to feel the trauma and release it naturally? And are we moving to a point where um as we receive more of our soul or are able to, I don't even like to say receive because as you mentioned everything is already within, but as we get more connected,
mm,
um, these are the greater understanding that will allow us to not even feel trauma as we feel it now. And the only reason we're feeling that trauma is because it's attached to our identity. And
mhm,
we've done that in so many lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So it get blocked. And I think that when we refer to the idea of shadow work, it's like a blockage. There's something that's blocking, that's not free, that's not happening. What's your perception on that?
I firstly want to say that what you've just said to me is shadow work. You said you don't agree with shadow work, and then how you explained why you didn't is shadow work, in my opinion.
That's why I was
Yeah.
looking at him like, sounds like shadow work, but
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because when I say notice, I'm not saying intervene, I'm not saying fix, I'm saying notice. You don't have to do anything. You allow the anger to be there. You allow
Yeah.
the urge to want the chocolate to be there. You don't have to do anything. Um, the label itself, I don't like labels anyway. I don't like language, but
Yeah, this is
you
what
know,
I'm referring to. Yeah.
yeah, this is why it can be even. I'm saying the same thing as you're saying, but your interpretation is different because of our understanding on language. We've just gotten a full circle back to where we started in this conversation,
Yeah,
which is
this
great.
is actually, I like the
Lovely.
bouncing back. That's basically what. Okay, true. It is. I guess that is the shadow work. It was okay. Many people. The reason why I'm saying this because I'm thinking about the community, and many people think, okay, oh gosh, I've got to work on myself. I've got to do this now.
Because
I
it's
got to,
called shadow
and
and
they
then
get
work.
themselves up to
Yeah.
that, and that creates even things because I've done it. And I realized I'm creating issue. It's like almost as if I saw one and create a new one, and I'm in this loop, and I'm like, and it's no longer the
Well, that's
experience that
because of the label and
right.
not because of what you've both explained, which is exactly the same
The
thing.
same, yeah,
But because you've labeled it
yeah,
differently,
yeah,
you can think it's something that it's not before you start doing it.
yeah. The interpretation I think is really important,
Because you're both saying
yeah,
exactly the same method.
yeah,
But it's this label again, it's this language again, isn't it?
yeah. But that's why I'm gonna be real. I'm using this conversation like bouncing back, and then I can just
Yeah.
and but yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
the fact that yeah.
Sorry, yeah, no, carry on. I was going to answer about the trauma, but
No, do.
Yeah, I do. That's what the
okay.
question's about.
Yeah, because I went through trauma. I had PTSD after my awakening type of experience. It has a lot to do with how much you're attached to your identity and what you think you are. Trauma has a lot to do with that, because I don't want to sound dismissive, but the trauma only exists because of your identity and how much you're attached to it. I'm not saying bad things can't happen, will happen. I'm not saying grief won't be there, anger won't be there, but the trauma itself is there because of your attachment to your identity and your thoughts that you attach to based around what's happened. I went through this for 10 years. I was trying to overcome my trauma, and I was battling against it, and it wasn't going. I was getting panic attacks. I was getting flashbacks. And when I decided to surrender and just think, I don't care, whatever happens, I kind of surrendered to everything. That's when it was almost like a second, I'd say a realization where I was holding on to that trauma. I was holding on to it. I was keeping the narrative of that trauma going. And when I decided to let that narrative go and just be human and enjoy being Sasha, I just speak about myself in the third person a lot, enjoy being me and my life, the trauma started to slowly fade away. So how to deal with trauma? I would say, firstly, know that it's okay. Trauma is allowed, and give yourself a break in regards to thinking you have to overcome it or fix it. Every time there is a thought, because essentially that's what's causing your panic attacks and your trauma, I guess. Every time there is a thought, try not to follow it and attach emotion to it. Try just to feel whatever's there in that moment, be with it and allow it. And again, this is kind of like a noticing and stopping the habit of this trauma rising over time. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It makes
Absolutely.
absolute sense.
Yeah.
And this will actually lead us to the idea of life review. You mentioned life review. We wanted to talk about it with you. We've got our own view on that.
We wanted your perspective.
We wanted your perspective on life review. And I'm going to ask it a little differently. Wanted to know, what is your perspective on life review, and are we obliged to have one?
I steer away from anything I have no direct experience of. I haven't had a direct experience of a life review. but I don't want to not answer your question. So I'll give you a theory based on my understanding, but this theory is a theory. Again, it's to do with how much you identify with your accumulations. We are the biggest judges of ourselves. And to me, it's not a coincidence that when people report having life reviews, that they judge themselves. I don't really want to talk too much about it because I haven't experienced one, but I'd just say that if you, I don't want to say too much about it.
I understand.
Yeah,
Thanks.
understandably.
Thanks.
Yeah, sorry if that's disappointing, but
No.
yeah.
No, it's not. We're gonna share. Might as well share with you how we
please.
perceive it. For me, I find it very counterintuitive. So, if I'm all knowing and integrate this experience once I cross over, um, I get with the idea that having a life review, because you gain a greater perspective, you want to gain a greater perspective on that experience in itself as you integrate it. Perhaps it's not fully integrated because you maybe crossed over very quickly or unexpectedly. So I can understand why someone would have it in order to be able to review what took place and integrate the experience. Now, in terms of the obligation of it, sounds to me, and again, that's my own perception, like a falsehood. Because if we have the ultimate, if we have free will, and if we are the ultimate decider, no one can force you unless you believe to be so, unless you hold a belief that's attached to that idea in the first place. Now, also another thing as well is the idea that life review has to be only bad and not necessarily a great thing for you, i.e., you will only review the bad things you've done as opposed to the great things you've done or everything. Now, some people have mentioned the fact that they've experienced one and they've were able to see the good they've done and also the not so good they've done. And it seems for them, they were able to integrate that. But for most of them, they came back. So it wasn't a full process where they actually died. I mean, passed over, if there's such things, and then came back to a new life and say, well, I remember, I mean, few of them did that and can spoke of that, but actually remember the fact that, I had a life before, I had this life review, this what took place. And while in between, before I came back, this is what I did. Not many can say that. So it's always been shown as I had an NDE or an out of body experience, had a life review, then I came back. Sounds like it's only one aspect of it, but not the full spectrum. That's my interpretation of it. How about you?
Well, mine's going to be a little bit off the cuff here, but I've experienced someone else's life review. It's a friend that passed away, and I was not dealing with his passing very well at all. It was the second friend that had passed away in a very short amount of time for me, and I felt myself going very, very deeply back into that place of grief. So I just cried myself to sleep that night, and I woke up and I saw him and I was like, hi, it's you. And then he showed me what people have now explained is a life review, but he fast forwarded to the bit where he was passing to let me know what it was, what it felt like, what happened, everything about it, what everyone was feeling. And it immediately put me in a place of peace about his passing and knowing where he is and knowing that he's all right and knowing where his family is. And there was that. And then as I've surrendered, like you were saying, this piece about surrender, as I surrendered to the idea of not forcing how I have my OBEs and what I quantify as real or not real, I have had many, I'm not going to say past lives, I'm going to say I've experienced my other instances where I've come and had life reviews, and what my person at the time or that person at the time had experienced and sat down and gone through. And that's where I got my understanding that some people use it as a way to reflect on things they may have missed, and then others have been used it to reflect on things they may have missed, good and bad. Times where they thought that that one smile meant nothing, but it just had this ripple effect of greatness. And then times where they've just said something off the cuff, didn't give it 2 seconds, and it's just had this ripple effect of not so greatness. So I wouldn't validate it or invalidate it, but there's always this attachment here to arcs outside of ourselves or obligate ourselves to things. And I think that that's where we get this, I've attached myself to an identity of who I am and what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. And I think we've put it in that box of things I have to do.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Because we've even started assigning ourselves things we have to do once we're not even here.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's one of those other things we have to do on that list that we've assigned ourselves. And that's why some people are like, no, I didn't have one.
You know, it's actually very interesting. Because you often say, Sasha, you're very thoughtful about it. Because you're like, I don't want to put people under the impression that I've had one myself. I didn't have a life review myself, but here's what it is. And you're very cautious because obviously how people interpret stuff, or again, the version of their reality or what they deem to be true. I learned that to not care too much about this anymore, personally, because I realized that it's against who we truly are. We here, to my perception, to share experiences. That's the whole point. Whether you had one, or you heard people having one, or you hear a concept that don't necessarily resonate with you, but you're like, hey, this don't resonate with me, because I feel that if I'm the ultimate decider, then, and I have free will, I shouldn't be obligated to anything. So perhaps we have to change perception, because again, if we change our perception to what a life review is here, it could be a very useful tool, it's like your imagination or anything else. But the mere fact that you changing your perception, you say, oh, that'd be nice if I can experience a life review, because I would like to see how it affect the world or people around me or whatever. But the minute you mention obligation, you have to have one, and that's what didn't resonate with me. But I share it because even though I had instances of myself that I experienced where I was somebody else, but I did not have a life review. Typically, what people will say, you watch a TV and you see everything you've done. No, I haven't had that. However, this doesn't disable me from feeling or using my intuition and be like, the obligation part of it, I'm not sure about that. Because ultimately, we do activate each other when we share these experiences. And you have such a great way to explain things. You use certain words, and I think they are very important, even in simplicity. So yeah, we wanted to mention that because essentially we like the way you perceive reality, and the way you explain reality. Um, and it's important. So I'm glad we were able to talk about it. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the chats right now. It's the first time looking at chats. Thank you everybody for turning up, who turned up in the live. There's a lot of outpouring of understanding for this conversation, which is great, because we were like, oh, I don't know how it's going to be taken, but hey, it's going to resonate with whoever it has to resonate with. And someone did make a really great connection about shadow work and saying, here's the thing with shadow work, inverted commas, it's your shadow. So it's yours. So hang on a minute. Got to back it up. I think it was tied around the idea of accepting it as your own. So there's like nothing to be scared of or judge, because it's just all you. Whether it's shadow, inner, outer, blah, 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 field, it's all you doing you, seeing yourself.
Yeah, there you go.
In different perspectives. That's what they said. Sorry, it keeps on jumping to whoever wrote that, but thank you all for being here. You know us already. We could talk to Sasha for ages. We're clearly going to do this again. It is what it is. But
oh yeah, there's
and look at me. I'm being very presumptuous because I haven't asked him.
Yeah, that's another thing. We've assumed.
I've
in our reality, we think that is it could happen.
You'd be like, guys, that was the last time we're doing that. All right.
No. I'm happy to join you whenever you want. I know. Can I just say one thing about the life review? I just wanted to add it after you spoke. I'll be quick. The reason why I don't want to talk about it is because stories are exactly what they are after the experience. Some people report having them, some people don't. Some people say they're good, some people say they're bad. So for me to even try to attempt to give a definitive this is what it is against who I am. So I can't do that, but I'll say what it appears to be, some type of integration or feeling out the fullness of the experience. But yeah, I just wanted to add that on.
That is what we can agree on. It's just a mishmash soup of everybody's perspectives on integration. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you will have to go through your own process of integration.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for everyone sharing in the chats right now. I see there's a lot of back and forth, and I love it. I really do. Thanks for turning up and listening to this conversation. Thank you, Sasha, for coming and just sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Chatting with us, and we do enjoy our conversations. We do love having you here. So yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, that is the end of that. If you want to reach out to Sasha, all of his details are going to be in the description. He has YouTube channel, he has Patreon. You just go and click and discover everything that is with him and take what resonates, as he always says. And thank you for sharing this space with us. All right.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on, guys. I've loved it, and we'll definitely do another if you're up for it.
We are
100%. Absolutely.
All right, guys. So thanks a lot, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you, guys.